Welcome to Recovering Addict. How is everybody this Sunday night? I am here to be your voice of serenity and reason and hopefully get you in a good headspace for the week to come. The grind, here it is. It's upon us one more time, Sunday night, and it doesn't have to be the blues. We can go to bed grateful tonight. I'm LT. I'm the host of this little show you see here, and I am a freaking alcoholic addict.
Yep.
Yep.
Felice Weaver, I'm the alcoholic addict's wife.
She's been beat down, run down, depressed, suppressed.
All the things. Now I'm here, happy as can be.
Codependent, co-addiction, all that good stuff. And now we're here as a family recovering together because why? We recover better together. And that's what everybody in the chat's all about too. Are you guys wondering who this is behind me on my right shoulder here? A lot of you guys heard me talk about him a lot. At least once a week I mentioned Maddie on this show because like I told you guys before, I was in a bad way. We used to party. We used to drink together. I've known Matt here for a good 7 or so or more, 8, maybe even 10 years. Who knows? But we drank together for a while, and then he got a different job in a different location. We didn't hang out for a little while, but I was still head first deep into a bottle of whiskey, a good fifth a night. And I talked to Matt, and he's like, "I quit, bro. Like, it was like 100 days when you finally told me." Something like that. But he was leading by example at work in front of me. Shared his story, strength and hope. So I just kept watching him as I'm at work all shaky and stinky and all that kind of stuff. So a huge part of my sobriety, achievement, success, even my, what do you call it? When it continues and my reoccurring sobriety and my strength comes from this guy right here. So it's an honor to have him here and on the show. And now that this COVID stuff's settling down out here in these more rural areas, I'm going to have more in-house guests. It's a little bit easier. It's a lot cleaner and all that kind of stuff. If we don't have to use links and stuff, that's what we're going to do. But we're going to read the 24 hours of a day, let everybody get signed in, and then I'll introduce Matt to y'all, and we'll turn the show over to him and let him tell you his story of strength and hope. Who we got hanging out today?
Lots of friends.
Wow. What's up, Kat and Brittany and Tracy? And we got Matthew giving us the hang loose. Yeah. Hey, there's our sister, Erin. What's up?
Hey, Erin.
Marilyn, good to see you too. Glad you're here. Who's our Facebook user?
That is Petey.
What's up, Petey? Welcome. We got everybody's shirts ready to go. We're going to send Aubrey and Petey his shirts probably tomorrow. And then the other two, the mediums, I just had to reorder some and then we'll send them out when they get in. Yeah. Desmond, what's up, mate? Good day, everyone. Queen's birthday holiday here. Oh, I thought Australia has a queen?
Sure.
I didn't know that. Give us some history on that, Des. What's up with the queen's birthday? I don't know what you're talking about. I always think of England. And is it England? It might be England. I don't know.
They're like Canada that ruled by the queen.
I'm a 10th grade dropout. I'm an alcoholic addict. I've had my head either in a bottle or a bag or a cloud my whole life. So you got to educate me. You guys got to keep me educated. Alicia, what's up?
Hey, Alicia.
Daryl, how you doing? And Jerry's in the house. How you doing, Jerry? Driving down the road. Right on. Jerry, as tempting as it is to stare at this beautiful face, please keep your eyes on the road. Felt like Ben Shapiro. Hey, Samantha. Welcome. If you haven't been here before, you guys, I have been a meth addict. I've been a complete alcoholic. I've gone to jail. I've been on probation. I've committed felonies. I've been caught for felonies. I've had to check myself into rehabs. I've had to detox, all that stuff. And now I'm here in recovery. That's what this show is about. We're here every night at 8 o'clock. He's not British. I know, mate. He's from Australia. My accents suck. I got a freaking Jersey accent right now because I've been hanging out with Paulie all week.
Right, Neil.
R.E., what's up? Amazing work you guys are doing. Thank you very much. Ari. Right on. We'll do 100%. Right on. All right, let's get into our June 7th, 24-hour thought of the day. Here's the AA thought of the day out of that. It says, alcohol is a progressive illness. We go through 3 stages of social drinking: trouble drinking and merry-go-round drinking. Social drinking, trouble drinking, and merry-go-round drinking. We land in hospitals and jails. We eventually lose our homes, our families, and our self-respect. Yes, alcoholism is a progressive illness, and there is only 3 ends to it: the insane asylum, the morgue, or total abstinence. So here's our question for ourselves today. Will I choose not to take the first drink? Don't take that first drink. Don't put yourself in high-risk situations. All that stuff. Here's our meditation. You not only can live a new life, but you also can grow in grace and power and beauty. Reach ever forward and upward after the things of the spirit. In the animal world, the very form of an animal changes to enable it to reach that upon which it delights to feed. Your whole character changes as you reach upward for the things of the spirit, for beauty, for love, for honesty, for purity, and for unselfishness. Reaching after these things of the spirit, your whole nature becomes changed so that you can best receive and delight in the wonders of the abundant life. Here's our prayer of the day. I pray that I may reach forward and upward. I pray that my character may be changed by this reaching upward for the things of the spirit. Yeah. Can someone get complete sobriety? I sure hope so, because that's what we're up here trying to teach is 100% abstinence. I believe that an AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, teaches 100% abstinence from any mind-altering drug, because we're addicts and we're going to abuse anything mind-altering. Whatever you got to do to get yourself there, if you got to do the whole Suboxone thing, whatever it is, one day you got to quit. One day you got to get off your mat. One day you got to get off of your anything that's helping your whatever it's called, something medicated assisted treatment or something. But yes, complete sobriety is 100% possible. If you work a good program, you surround yourself by good people who are in recovery, who have been there, done that. You get a good sponsor. It doesn't have to be AA and NA. Just get around people who are trying to line their moral values with their life and their living. So bring your moral values and start living your life accordingly to them, and you can achieve 100% sobriety. Absolutely.
Hi, Dawn.
Dawn's on the house?
Hmm?
Where's she at?
Right
There she is. Hey, Dawn. Good to see you. Coffee and water. Look at Polly.
Aaron told you to
He's
get
in
some
Salt Lake.
water and work on your accent.
Get some water. All right, you guys. I'm going to give the floor to Matt. Felicia's going to go over, and you'll see her in the comments. So if you got anything to say to Felicia, just throw a comment.
I'll just yell real loud.
Or she can yell, whatever. But she'll be watching y'all. This is my really good friend, and it's an honor to have him here. The fact that we're both sitting here together speaking on sobriety and sober, because we got some war stories together. I thought about putting some of the pictures and videos that we had, because we got pictures and videos to prove our drinking relationship, and it's not pretty at all. 0. I decided to not do that because this is a place for recovery. Not so much, the war stories are there. We all have them, but we're not going to gloat and laugh and trigger ourselves by watching them, because it's really, at the end of the day, remember we talked about how it's funny to talk about people that, do the crazy things they do, but it's like somebody slipping on a banana peel. You think it's funny for a minute, and then you realize, oh crap, they fell, they're hurting. And that was us. We fell, we were hurting. So anyway, this is Matt. I'm going to let him take the floor, and you guys enjoy what you're about to hear.
I guess I'll start with a little background. So I went to my first party in high school. I think I was about 17 or 18. So I was kind of a late bloomer compared to most addicts and alcoholics. So I had a couple beers that night and sobered up and ended up driving home. Told my dad exactly what I did, because first time really drank. And that was that. And after I graduated high school, I went to a community college in Gainesville, Florida, and had a roommate with my best friend Matt, who I grew up with. So we also had 2 other roommates. And one night I heard my friends or my roommates starting to play beer pong out in the living room, and that's where it all began. Loved beer. I was crazy on beer. Me and my best friend were crazy, and we had a lot of fun. Also, in college, I smoked a lot of weed, and that's about all I did for a while, up until when I joined the Air Force. And in the Air Force, I drank a lot too, because I just turned 21 in basic training. So after I got out of basic training, I went a little crazy, being able to go to the bars, being all legal, being able to buy my own alcohol and liquor, stuff like that. But I was only a social drinker at that time. And I guess when you start to meet more people is when you start to see more things and do more things. Like, I'm not gonna go back too far on this one, but I slept with an officer's wife, which got me discharged from the Air Force. And while with her, we did a lot of different drugs and drank drugs like ecstasy and acid and mushrooms, all the stuff that I swore to myself that I would never try. And so it's kind of crazy and funny how you meet one person that can destroy your life at the time. But that didn't stop me there. So I stopped talking to her and got a job back on base. It was very hard because of that discharge. Still kind of haunts me today, but that's where I met LT, is over in the F-22s. And I guess I was only still drinking then and kind of smoking weed still, because as a contractor, they'd only drug test you when you first get hired on. So there was no worries about getting drug tested while on the job, unless you screwed up something, I guess. So I guess I was drinking and smoking weed for quite a while, up until I met my future wife. I think the last time I smoked, actually no, it won't be the last time. Can't say that. I think when my alcoholism really started going downhill is when I was living on my own out here in Utah. I mean, I wasn't drinking much liquor, but beer, I was drinking beer almost every night, but not to get drunk, just to have a couple of tastes and get that initial buzz. And then I met my future wife, Tara. That must be Tara.
I'll find out.
I lost my train of thought now.
We met in the 22s.
That's Whitney.
Oh, that was Whitney.
That's Whitney.
So yeah, met in the 22s. You're having trouble. You're a contractor, so you're doing drugs because you only got drug tested once, and now you've met your wife.
Yep. I met my wife.
Your current wife.
Current wife. Only wife.
We are in Utah.
And I was about to move back to Florida, and I knew this before I met her, but There's Tara. Anyways,
So how old are you right now at this point in your thinking?
this is like, ooh,
So this is probably 8 years
I was
ago,
like
right?
27, I think.
So 27 years old.
Yeah, I'm 32 now.
And you moved back to Florida in between when we knew each other? You
Yep.
moved?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I moved back to Florida. I chose to move back because earlier that year in 2015, my best friend Matt, who I went to college with, he actually passed away due to cancer. I don't remember what kind. I think it was in his bladder, something to do with that. And after that is why my drinking really picked up. So that's why I was planning on moving back to Florida. And then I met Tara like a month and a half before I left, and we really hit it off. Like, if I didn't have everything set up, I would have stayed here in Utah. And yeah, but the day after I moved back to Florida, Tara called me and she told me she was pregnant. And so, all right, I need to call you back. I need to think about this. And so I thought about it, and then I texted her because I knew she was going to a wedding at the time, and I asked her if she could send me a picture. But what she thought I was meaning is if she could send me a picture of the pregnancy test, which I really wanted just a picture of her in her dress going to the wedding. So it was kind of funny. I was like, no, I want a picture of you in the dress. I believed you. And so I moved in with my sister after that and told her I would find a job and save up the money to move back to Utah. But while I was working and saving up the money, I was also drinking. My dad taught me how to drink scotch on the rocks, of course. And that's when the liquor really started to go down, because I noticed I could start drinking liquor without any chasers or any mixtures. And I liked it a lot. I was drinking scotch almost every night until Tara came and flew down to Florida, and I proposed to her. And then we drove back to Utah, and I guess my drinking didn't really get too far out of control because I was kind of controlling myself here and there. On the weekends, I would let myself drink some more whiskey and have some more beer. And then once I didn't drink much during the week, but when I did, it was just a couple beers. On the weekends, I drink a couple glasses of scotch or whiskey. Any kind of whiskey at this point was tasty to me. And then we had our son, Corbin, who will be 4 in 3 days. It's crazy. Time goes by so fast. I noticed myself starting to drink a little bit more. Not quite as much as where I left off with, but still enough to make people worry. And there were nights where I scared my wife and my stepson. I have a stepson, Quinlan. He's 13 now. And that went on for a little while until we had our little girl, Morgan, who will be 2 next month. And that's where my drinking really started to take off.
So how old are you at this point? And who's 2?
My daughter Morgan,
Okay, she's 2, and you're probably what, 29 now?
29 or 30. No, I'd be 30.
30?
Yeah.
And so this is where your drinking starts to become a problem.
Yeah, starts becoming a problem. And I think my daughter was just born, and I think we went to that F-35 golf tournament that first time, where we didn't get quite as wasted, but still enough where I almost threw up outside of your truck when you're driving me home. And you probably shouldn't have drove home either.
Oh, that's when I drove home.
Yeah.
Oh, the first
That's
tournament.
the first one.
Yeah, so we went to a golf tournament. Yeah, that was the one he's talking about. Well, I drank a pint and I probably drink close to it. Yeah, I shouldn't have been driving, and he shouldn't have either. But he didn't drive. I drove him home.
Yeah, you picked me up and took me home.
Yeah.
That wasn't the scary one, but I'll get to that one in a minute. And I guess my drinking slowly started to take off more. So I'd kept my bottles in the pantry. There's when we got the freezer out in the garage, and then I got tired of putting ice in my whiskey. So I started to keep the whiskey in the freezer in the garage, which kept it cold. But at the time, I didn't think that I was going to make it easier to go out and take shots, which it did. And it was quick and easy, and it tasted real good. And we'll talk about the second F-35 golf tournament, because I'm pretty mad at myself for how that went. We were golfing again, and it got to the point where I didn't remember the last hole we were playing. The video LT was talking about is me laying in the middle of the fairway. I am passed out, and he's on top of me, just smacking me in the face, trying to get me to wake up. And just looking back on that video, you guys, it's not pretty. I mean, it's funny to look back on now, but just what I don't even know what to say to that. So I don't remember the rest of the night, but once I woke up at I think it was 10 p.m. and I had got home, I don't know, maybe 2 p.m. Apparently my wife told me to go to bed because I scared her and Quinlan, which is my stepson, so bad that they didn't know what to think of me. I guess I was falling all over the place and trying to get into the fridge, trying to eat more food. And I don't know, it just scared me so bad that I did not remember anything after golf or while I was golfing. But yeah, back to the freezer in the garage. I don't think my wife knew, but most of the time she thought I was doing something, but I was out in the garage taking shots. And I don't think half the time she knew that I had been drinking. This is where it starts to get harder. So this one time when I still had my 97 GMC I was digging up the rock pit or the fire pit in the backyard, and I was loading my truck up with dirt. And while I was doing this, I was taking shots. I don't think I told my wife this, so if she's listening, I still love you. I ended up driving. Of course, I was taking the load of dirt to my in-laws' house because they have about 3 acres where I could just dump dirt and stuff like that, and they don't mind. I was on my way over there, and I noticed this jogger. He was running all weird, and I was like, "Oh, that guy's running weird." And then I looked back in front of me, and these cars are stopped at an intersection. There's no stoplight or stop sign or anything. It's just one of those cars trying to turn left. And I got a truckload full of dirt, so I slammed on my brakes, and I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna hit that car." So I swerved to the right and barely missed 5 cars. That's how many cars were in front of me. Went right into the intersection and stopped right in time before I hit the car trying to turn left this way. And I'm sure it scared the shit out of everybody because it scared the shit out of me. But did it scare me away from drinking? No. I was like, "Oh, I'm fine. We're good. No problem."
You would have got a DUI?
Oh, yes. I don't know how much I would have blew, but I was definitely going to jail if I hit anybody. So I guess it was a blessing in disguise, but still didn't scare me away. Kept drinking. I probably was drinking almost every night, taking shots. And on the weekends, I'd stay up later just to have a couple more drinks until I got to that point where I wanted to be. But like we always say, 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. It never was.
How's that one thing go? Future pain plus instant pleasure.
Future pain plus instant pleasure? No, pain plus instant relief. Future pain. Yeah.
So that kept going until Sunday night. I had finished my whiskey. Like LT, I would try to save the whiskey throughout the weekend, but I finished it that Sunday night. And Monday when I woke up, I was pretty hungover. And so I told my wife I would stay home. She was also staying home because she didn't feel good. So I said I'd stay home to take care of her. And since the kids were at my in-laws, I told her I'd take care of her. And then as I was taking care of her, I realized she was good. So I thought, and I asked her if I could start working on the fire pit again and go get a couple more loads of rock to put out there to make it look nice. And so with her being upstairs, I went downstairs, down to our basement. Short story, we used to make our own wine. So we had like 90 to 100 bottles of wine in our basement. So there was always alcohol in the house.
Good thing I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I went downstairs, grabbed a bottle of wine, put it in one of my big old Yeti cups, and drove to the place where I pick up the rock and drove back, all drinking this bottle of wine. Amazingly, it fit perfectly in that cup. So, So once I was done with all the rock and loading it up and bringing it to my backyard, I started building cornhole boards because that's what I like to do, and I made a little bit of money on the side doing it. And by then, I didn't want wine anymore because it was just making me thirsty. So I waited until about 11 a.m., which is when the liquor stores open here in Utah. And so I waited, or I drove to the liquor store, and I went and waited in the parking lot until 11 a.m. and went and bought a bottle of whiskey, one of those big bottles. I was planning on drinking half of it that day, I'm sure. And went back home drinking this bottle, put it in my freezer, and continued building cornhole boards. And so kept drinking. And then like 3 o'clock rolled around, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to go pick up my kids from my mother-in-law's. And so that's what I did.
How much do you think you drank before you picked up your kids?
I don't know, probably close to 10 shots, I'm sure. And I took one shot before I hit the road. And got to my in-laws' house and just picked up my kids. My in-law or my mother-in-law didn't know that I had been drinking. And so I left and took them home. And then after I got home, I continued taking more shots. And that later that day, my stepson had a baseball game that I was the assistant coach at. And so I kept taking shots. I was not quitting. And believe it or not, I don't remember much from that game. I do remember yelling a lot and being a lot more active than I usually am at the game, which everybody seemed to notice. And after the game, I don't even know if we won or lost. But after the game, I was walking out to the parking lot, and I couldn't even find my car in the parking lot. And I was going to drive myself and my stepson home. And my wife realized this because I was just hoping it's like, oh, it's got to be past this one truck. And if it's not, I'm fucked. Because I know my wife is watching me right now. Sure enough, she pulls up next to me and said, "You're fucking drunk, aren't you?" I'll never forget this. I was like, yep. Jumped in the car. She drove us to the house, called up her parents, who were at the game as well, and they flew to our house, and they were there before we got there. And we don't live far from our house, from that ballpark. Oh.
So this spurred an impromptu intervention?
Yeah, they tried to intervention. I was sitting there, lifeless, just staring off into the distance. They're trying to talk some sense into me. I can't even remember what they were saying. But it got to the point when they told me just to go to bed. And so I did. And then I woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning and then just realized, it's like, oh, shit. I am in some deep shit right now. And so I went downstairs and talked to my wife. And we talked about it. And then we both agreed that I needed help. Because putting my kids in danger like that is the last thing I want to do. But being on alcohol, drinking that much, and not even caring about anyone, myself included, or my kids on the road, just made me so mad and scared for what could happen. I was lucky. I was very lucky. I never got arrested. I never got caught, except by my family.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. And so that day, my wife talked about a place where I could get help. And so she found out where that place was. And so I checked myself into action.
Hold on. Before you get into your recovery.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a little recap. You're partying and drinking all through the teenage years, just like we normally do.
Yep.
Getting high, doing drugs led you to sleeping with an officer's wife and getting discharged from the Air Force. You moved to Florida, but your now wife was pregnant right before you moved there. So you moved back to Utah, married your beautiful new wife, right? Your only wife.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, alcoholism took over. You started from casually taking shots and drinking beer to every night, just like me, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so now you've been drunk driving. You've almost crashed and killed people. You've driven your kids around numerous times drunk. And now your wife is totally on. She's probably been on to you for longer than you suspected. And you can't find your car after driving your kids drunk, coaching a baseball game you barely remember. Your wife catches you lose your car in the parking lot, and there's an impromptu intervention that you're not even really present for because you're so drunk. And the next day you wake up, guilt, shame, fear, all that just weighing on your heart, right?
Yep.
And that's when you decide to get help. Okay, so right before we get into the recovery side of this, let's hear our motivational quote from Cassie.
Hey guys, so happy to be here. I'm here with your motivational quote on recovering addicts. Before I start, I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for your continued support. It means so much to me. I know I've said it before, but I can't thank you enough, especially, you're going through some times, and it's just nice to know that you guys are there and you guys care and you miss me. So thank you. Anyways, here's your motivational quote on recovering addicts. Never forget the most powerful force on earth is love. Nelson Rockefeller. And as always, you guys know what to do. Put your hands together and let's continue to spread that love.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we're sitting here talking to my really good friend who's been a blessing in my life. He just shared all his troubles and sorrows with alcohol, and now he's checked into an IOP program. I'm going to let him finish his story. I'm going to use the bathroom.
Okay. I'll start off that same day. My wife took me to my in-laws' house where I could have a sober talk with my mother-in-law, which she absolutely ripped me a new one. And she told me, which I'll never forget, if you ever put my grandbabies in that car with you drunk ever again, I'll make sure your marriage is done. And that will always stick with me. It's a lot of motivation right there just to be like, nope, I don't need it. Your life is better off without it. And so that next week, I went to my first day at Action, and I remember filling out all the paperwork for it. It's like, oh, I can make this seem like I'm not that bad, and they'll just let me go home. I don't really need this place. And so I kind of lied a little bit on my paperwork, but I still had to go in. You're there Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 9 p.m. every day. And that's what I did for the next 4 months. Those first few weeks were pretty rough, I'll admit. There were a couple times where it's like, as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to start drinking again. I'm just going to learn how to control my drinking. That's pretty much what I told him when I started. It's like, what are you trying to get out of this? And I told him, it's like, I just want to learn how to control my drinking. But that's...
Control it.
Yeah. It's funny to think about now. I was so sure I was going to start drinking again. There's action.
Now we're at action.
But after doing step 1, it's like, whoa, you can't ever drink again. Because once you start, it's just going to go back to where you left off, plus some. It's never going to be easy for you to drink again, is what I told myself. And then I went to step 2, which I was nervous for because I was religious at the time and believed, but I was not happy with God, my higher power. I had a grudge and resentment against him for taking my best friend from me in 2015. And I never let it go until the night before this big race that one of the girls in action tried to, or got me to do, which is insane. It's an 11-mile race up a mountain, 4,000 feet in 4 miles, and then you run back down another 6 miles. And that night before, I prayed to my higher power and forgave him for everything and for taking my best friend from me and letting him know that I understand why he needed him. And that night, everything changed. I ended up completing that race the next day, which was amazing because it is hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
What I like about what you talk about in your story and how our stories are kind of like, I think it happens with everybody that goes into an IOP. But you got to your step 2, you did that 11-mile race and had that epiphany and that spiritual awakening and, forgave God, understood what God does in this world. And then you pressed on with your recovery and complete abstinence. About the same amount of time in, I was behind him a few months in rehab, but we were there together. I had about the same at the 47 mark, had that spiritual awakening, but mine came with a relapse. Matt's never relapsed. I relapsed. So I think that's really awesome, but more power. How, anybody out there listening right now, you can get through your IOP and have these awakenings without a freaking relapse. Let Matt be an inspiration to you. You want to talk about that? Go ahead.
Sorry, I got distracted by Merck's comment.
What did he say? Talk to him.
We're never 6 feet away from each other, even at work. I'm going to need you to repeat that last part.
So your step 2, you had your awakening, and now you have had no relapse, but you've decided to not ever go back to drinking. And tell everybody how long you've been clean since that and what struggles you've had and just the rest of it.
I have been clean for about 370 days, give or take a day. I just passed my year on Thursday.
Hit a year on Thursday.
Yeah, it was cool. My wife surprised me with a plaque to put all my AA coins in.
Oh, I saw that. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
It's pretty cool. I loved it. I don't know if she could tell by my face. I was kind of speechless, but I loved it. And I can't wait to put the 9-month and year coin in there.
Yeah.
Still haven't got those yet. I need to go get those.
You gonna get them this Friday?
Yeah.
Sweet. Anybody got any questions for Matt as we're going? The thing that gets me is a year with no relapses, because you don't have to freaking relapse. And he's another inspiration to me to keep going without ever having to relapse. There he is, leading the charge again in my sobriety. You know what I mean? You can respond to him.
Thanks, Ingrid. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah. Yeah, Ingrid, there's a lot of peeps. We have a really good recovery family. So what you're seeing is I'm a part of a family now, a recovery family here locally, and action is the reason for it. And Matt getting me to action is the other reason for it. But we have a strong community right around here. And once you've sit in an IOP for half a year with people and you tell them the deepest, anything you're, because when you go into an IOP, you forgot about what your emotions were. You've suppressed them. You've been numbing yourself, and that is your good emotions and your bad emotions. So when you start expressing these emotions in front of people, now there's a group of people out here that I still talk to that I break down and cry every time I read a step. And I don't sob or nothing, but without fail, I write my step, I read it again, and then I read it out loud to everybody. About halfway through it, my throat closes up. And so you get to really know these people, and they get to know, I get to hear their darkest sides. They get to hear my darkest sides. And Utah right now is just, there's an awesome recovery family right up here in this area.
Yeah. So Aaron, my clean date is June 4th, 2019.
June 4th, 2019. Wow.
And right now I am working on step 7 with my IOP program. And I just finished step 9 with my sponsor. So I get to move on to step 10 with him.
Awesome. Well, what's the hardest part, the biggest triggers you've faced, the hardest temptations, or the hardest thing staying clean? What's what is your addict thinking, all that stuff?
Not working your program is a big one. You have to work the program to keep your head clear. And if you don't, your addict starts to come out. And I don't like it when my addict starts to come out. I start to have bad days. And people start to notice, especially my wife. I'm usually the grumpiest around them when on my bad days. I start to yell at my kids. I start to get short with my wife. And that's why you have to work a strong program. Talk to your higher power. He helps a ton. Give away those defects if you can. Not all of them, because then you won't be human anymore.
Interesting. Good job, jump little doggy. 11 years. Wow.
That's cool.
And that's proof, like what Matt just said, work your program or you're going to have a bad day, basically.
Yeah.
That's 18 plus 11 years of program working with one relapse. And that's right. It works if you work it, Jana Bailey. Have you been in any high risk situations? And if so, how did you deal with them?
So my first high risk situation, I couldn't really miss this because my cousin was getting married. This is the first or the second marriage in my family besides mine. And so I couldn't miss it. It's one of my oldest cousins. And so I went there to Boston. And if you ever go to a wedding, make sure you have a way out in case you need to, because I did not have a way out and I needed a way out really bad. I was not myself that whole time.
What did that look like? Explain that.
There was tons of liquor, tons of beer and wine, and everybody was getting wasted, including my family. And every one of them tried to get me to come dance, which sober's like, I don't dance. It was only when I was drinking, and I didn't know how to have fun. I think I was only like 2 months clean at the time when
yeah, you got to learn how to have fun again.
Yeah, I was not prepared. You have to be prepared mentally.
And you got to understand too, if you know Matt like I know him, he's really introverted, really quiet. He could sit in a crowd of people and not talk for days, and he's fine with it. So to go to a wedding and try to get him on a dance floor, he's definitely going to want to get drunk, right? That's when he would come out and shine. And that's what he would cope with: social anxiety, with alcohol, because he likes to just be introverted and watch the crowd. The fact that he's on this show here tonight, sober, is a huge coming out of his shell, coming out of his, increasing his, what do you call that? Comfort zone. You know what I mean? So it's a shout out that he's here actually telling his story on the show, because that's a huge win in his growing and recovery.
It's amazing what you can do when you're sober.
That you don't need alcohol for, right?
Sober me and my addiction would have not done this. I mean, still couldn't have done it because I wouldn't actually be sober.
Maybe we would have probably had a different show.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a good one to watch.
No.
But my other high-risk situation, I went to another wedding, which was my sister's wedding, but I was able to prepare myself. I had a lot more tools to use and a lot more support. A lot more people knew about my recovery, which was my first mistake in the first wedding, as my close family, like my mother, my sister, and my stepdad and my wife only knew I was sober. But at my sister's wedding, I made sure that people were knowing that I was sober. And so I was prepared and had a great time sober at this wedding, which only had beer and wine, but still tons of alcohol, and people were getting drunk. And I had a great time there. And me being so introverted, I even said a speech at this wedding, which turned out to be awesome. I ended up making the whole room laugh, and everybody knew me for the rest of the night.
That's cool.
That was a wedding I'll never forget, and I'm glad that I was at my sister's wedding. It was so cool. But I think those are the only real high-risk situations I've put myself in.
So what's your advice for a new person? And this is a loaded question, but for somebody that's 2 months into a program in high-risk situations, what's your advice to them?
I would think that you should stay away from them as long as you can. I mean, they're probably going to come up, especially with alcohol. Alcohol is everywhere.
Yeah, it makes me think of what we learned. We learned this together in our IOP. But if you're a year in sobriety or under, if even 2 years, I would say 2, there's 3 classes of places that you have. We have a scale, right? A 1 to 10 scale, 1 through 4. You have no business being there if it's within your first 2 years of sobriety. I don't even think ever, but that's bars, obviously dope houses, places where there's drinking, even if you're going out to eat. Those are high risk situations and you have no business being there. And then from 4 to 7, it would be probably like a wedding. You're committed to a family to go. But if you're in a place like that, or maybe it's a place where you have to be for work, you have to be there. you go there, but you have a plan. And like he said, his first high risk situation, he wasn't prepared. He didn't have a plan, and that could have been huge and disastrous. But if you are in those situations from 4 to 7, make sure you got a plan. You got your finger on your sponsors. You know where all the exits are. You have people getting ready to check on you within an hour to see where you're at. And then, 7 through 10, pull up your big kid pants. You're going to be in the beer aisle. You're going to walk past somebody smoking weed in this country now. Just, you got to get through it and be tough enough to do it. And that's kind of what it makes me think of. Looking back on those, what would you do different?
I wouldn't have gone to that wedding.
You wouldn't have?
No. I wish I would have listened to Rick. But us addicts, we don't like to listen to other people.
That's true.
Especially so early in our recovery.
That is truth right there.
But my sister's wedding, I don't regret that at all. I had so much fun.
And you had a plan at that wedding?
Yep.
Knew what you were going to get into? And
yep.
What was your plan?
Just to make sure I was spiritually fit and to make sure my family knew and had my back on anything and everything. And were just there for me the whole time. I also had my 2 little ones, so that made it a little easier too. And believe it or not, I actually danced at that wedding a couple times.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'd only dance with people though, like my wife or my daughter or my son, not by myself.
That's awesome. Yeah, yesterday I was close to a high-risk situation. I entered a high-risk situation. If you guys were on Zoom with me Saturday, you knew kind of my story of what happened. But and if you were on, like you said, you saw me leave, and I went up there. I sat down on the back patio. I looked around, and there was beers, and I stood up. I told Felice, I said, "I'm out of here." I was there probably 45 seconds, maybe a minute, and I walked right out of there. I had no business being there, especially not being spiritually fit, like you said. And I like that point, is you got to be spiritually fit. And then that's like almost rule number 1 in a sense, right? Be spiritually fit, make sure your family knows you got a plan. You got people watching your back and those are good people. I mean, that's awesome that your wife, and you can tell them, hey, we're going to a high risk situation, and they're going to, hey, how you doing? Did they check on you? How did that go?
Checking on me?
Yeah, like did they ask you throughout the night or anything, or did you kind of give them updates of your emotions? Or
it's kind of hard to remember, but I think they did check on me a couple of times, just seeing how I was. And normally you can tell with my facial reactions if I'm faking it or actually being happy. And I actually was being happy.
That's awesome. What you want to watch for is if you're watching people drinking and wishing you could, then get the hell out of there fast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing, is if you see that, I usually just turn my head and change my thoughts. Just don't even watch.
Don't even fantasize, huh? That'll get us in trouble. But that's where spiritual, like Aubrey, he's saying, being able to the spiritually fit first and then plan. And it's kind of built on that foundation of the spiritual fitness. So you did a good job, dude. I'm glad. But I'm glad you didn't relapse at your first one either. That could have been.
Yeah. I had my wife and my mom there, so they probably wouldn't have let me. And I made sure, this is the only thing I did right at that wedding, is
the first high risk one, right?
Yeah, the first high risk one. I made sure someone came with me to the bar, because that was the only place where you could get soda or water was at the bar, which kind of sucked. So I never went there by myself. That was the only thing I did for that one.
That's good. Anybody got any other questions or anything before we shut this down? You got any last thoughts you want to leave them with? A year under your belt, what's your biggest piece of advice? Let me put you on the spot.
You have to be honest with yourself and let yourself open up.
What do you mean by open up?
You can't lie about anything, and you can't leave anything out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you hear that? That's a year under his belt of sobriety. And the things he's saying right now that are the most things on his mind, or the biggest things on his mind, is you have to be completely honest, open up, because there's a community of people that if you're not talking to them, you're not going to be in recovery. I mean, we recover better together is the motto of this channel because of what he just said. Open, honest communication. Aubrey, he says, every morning divorce yourself and have a higher power be your lead. Amen.
I like that.
Amen. Tracy says, thank you for sharing.
Anytime.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Ingrid.
All right. Well, we're going to say the Serenity Prayer and close this down for the Sunday night. And everybody go to bed knowing what you can accomplish. You can enter an IOP. You can get a year under your belt without any relapses. So if you're at 14 days, if you're at 30 days, if you're at 60 days, you don't have to relapse. Be open, be honest, have a program, have a plan, have plans for anything. Do you have any plans that just, if somebody, like for closing back doors, or if, like, say you are all of a sudden in a high risk situation, are you prepared for that?
Yeah. My best friend at my wedding, I had to close the back door with him, which all he wanted to do was just hang out and drink. So it really wasn't that hard. I mean, kind of hurt a little bit, but it had to be done. And for the next high risk situation, I don't really plan on being in one, but if I was, I'd make sure my wife was there with me. She is my biggest supporter. I guess my parents would be too, but she's my biggest supporter.
Yep.
My parents aren't watching.
Do you want to come pray with us, honey?
Yeah.
Good job, Marilyn. That's awesome.
Yeah, good job on that year. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Anytime.
God,
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Well, you guys just heard it from Matt. It's possible, and it's valuable, and it's a better way of life. Learn how to have fun, learn how to live, learn how to laugh sober. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We're going through a book right now called Addictive Thinking. We are on chapter 4, Confusing Cause and Effect. So we're going through Addictive Thinking, chapter 4 tomorrow, 8 o'clock as usual. And I got a little new term I'm going to add to my slogans. I want you all to never put yourself in a high-risk situation. Oh, did she?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Hold on.
Bam.
Boom. There it is.
Oh,
That's
I
his
love
wife,
you.
y'all, right there. There's wifey in the comments.
Oh, you gotta change your last name though.
They're not really married. It's a whole lie.
That's awesome. All right, where's Matt? Okay. Yeah, so don't ever put yourself in a high-risk situation. Stay strong, work your programs, and remember, we recover better together.